Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mythic for Operators. Today we're going to be talking about logging and webhooks. Now, in Mythic 3.0, both logging functionality and webhook functionality were split out from the main Mythic core server. This means that they are now both available in separate Docker containers with more customization available for you. So if we want to look at this, Mythic provides two example containers for you. There is the basic logger and basic webhook containers, which do, as you might expect, basic logging and basic webhooks for you. Now, of course, you can customize these and do a lot more configuration options with them, but by default, they're pretty straightforward. So if we look at the basic logger code, for example, all it's doing is registering callback functions for the various data that comes in for logging. So Mythic will emit this logging notification for new callbacks, tasks, payloads, keylogs, credentials, artifacts, files, and response data. So anytime Mythic gets any of this data, it gathers the corresponding metadata around it. So like who issued it, when, what operation, that sort of data, takes all that, sends it out over RabbitMQ to any container that's registered to be listening for these functions. If it finds one, it then sends it to that container. The container gets it and then does something with it. By default, all we're doing is just logging it out to standard console and writing it out to a mythic.log file. Here in this basic logger, we'll write it out to a maximum of 10 files, each going up 20 megabytes in size. Again, configurable, up to you. You can also do more with this if you want as well. For example, instead of just logging all the data, you could then parse it, put it in a specific format that you need, and write it to a separate file, or send it via some sort of web request directly to your SIM, or do additional processing on it. Whatever it is that you want to do, you now have this full control. Additionally, because this is part of the standard containers and services associated with Mythic, if you get data on any of these channels, you can then use that to then hit the Mythic RPC calls and enrich that data. For example, with the webhook containers, whenever you go up here and you click this little thumbs down icon that you want to submit feedback, what we do is if you submit like a bug and you specify a task number, that container goes through, uses that task number and the operation where you identified this to fetch more data about the task, like what command was it? Was it successful or not? This additional metadata that's then used for the webhook to enrich and give the operator a bit more context as to what's going on. So all of that functionality is available to you as part of webhooks or as part of logging containers. Now, whenever we look at logging, we have all that data that's being presented that you're able to log into. So we can go through and we can kind of stream that to see what's going on. So if we do, we'll do Docker logs follow basic logger. I'll kind of scroll that up so we can see what's going on. Now, if we come over to Mythic and do something like a task, we'll issue PWD. So then we can come back to the logger and see right here that we now have information for a new task that we are, oh, here we go, our new task that we're not completed, we haven't been blocked or anything like that. We are running the command pwd with no parameters, this timestamp, stuff like that. What we saw down here was another entry, another couple entries. Here is a new response entry, the result of the data. It always comes back as base 64 because it could be anything. And then we also have another task message here about the update for our command pwd, where it has the status completed. And we can see here, completed true. So you get these sort of real-time updates as to what's going on. Now, if you want to test this sort of stuff, make sure that if you are doing modifications to it, that you are getting all the right values and you're able to properly process the data. What you can do is you can actually come here in the Mythic UI, select the hamburger icon, then select services, consuming services. So what this does is give you a kind of test portal into logging and webhook containers. So for any of these are the things that Mythic is emitting. So it'll send a message about responses, key logs, stuff like that for the logging side. For the webhook side, it'll send information about new feedback. So that's that little thumbs down icon. New callbacks when Mythic starts up, new alert messages, or even custom webhooks that you can set up through scripting. So what we can do is say maybe, some new response. So we want to test that our modification of that data is working. Simply click this button and Mythic will send a test message out for that specific event. So if we come back here, we can now see that we got this new response message with, empty data. So no ID, no response data here, no task information, but the fields are still there. So you can process this data out. Same sort of thing goes for webhooks. You can see here, I click this and it says no webhook URL specified. So we haven't specified anywhere for it to go. Webhooks are a little bit special in that there's a couple of things you can do. So if you click your operation up here at the top and you click configure, so you want to edit it, there's an option here to specify webhook channel and webhook URL. So this is an operation specific parameter that's kind of a default. So if you don't specify any other configuration parameters, but you specify a channel here and a URL here, then anytime you have any of these events happen, the webhook container will try and send its message to that channel and that webhook. Now, you can customize this a bit more. If you look at the .env config file for Mythic, you'll see down here at the bottom some webhook parameters. So you can specify your own webhook default URL that applies globally, not just to an operation. You can also specify the default alert, callback, feedback, startup, and custom channels. So say you specify your own custom alert channel. Like I want all of my alerts to go to, hashtag Mythic alerts. If in the UI you then specify your own channel, like maybe, Red Team 2023, and you get a new alert, this alert channel will take precedence and it will go there instead of your default one that you specified. Now, if you got a new callback and this was left empty, then the channel used will be the default one that you specified in the UI. This allows you to have a kind of default case, but if you are more interested or have unique dedicated channels for some of this information, you can utilize this. And this sort of message and processing, just like for logging, applies to webhooks. So you can modify that webhook code or create your own entire one that allows you to send different kinds of messages. You can send it to different services. So maybe you don't want to send it to Slack. Maybe you want to send it to Discord or Mattermost or some other custom internal service. All of that is customizable. You are just catching the data off of RabbitMQ, and then you can do with it whatever you want. So it provides a lot of opportunity for you to make customizations, and you can even send it to 3 webhooks every time you get it or whatnot. Like you can do a lot of stuff with this that makes it more robust and customizable for you, the operator, instead of having Mythic have one solid instance pre-configured, hard to edit. So that's a very quick overview of logging and webhooking within Mythic. It's all split out that allows you to have a lot more customizability. Remember, a fresh install of Mythic will not do logging or webhook for you. You need to install them just like you would a C2 profile with the Mythic CLI.